My name is Margaret Ann Windsor, and I just finished 4 tapes, videos, prior to this one. I left this out. The title of those videos were Mind Control Patterns, uh, and it was 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So I guess I'll just say this is 5. I wanted to put this on here though because I failed in the mind control, telling about some of those, especially the Columbine and the one that just happened. Well, Aurora, Colorado may not be too far from Denver. I have to look it up and see where the James Holmes was programmed to shoot. I wanted to. Uh, is that I believe they're close to Denver anyway, but Evergreen, Colorado, back in what was that, 81, 82, that's after the antifreeze had been put in me, and I'd done the book and all that, worked for the DA, but I ended up going to D.C. because John Hinckley, I know where I was living, at Haystack Apartments, yeah, so it was, uh, that happened prior to 82, because I went up there in spring of 82. And I got up there, and I had no money, and was carrying a load where I'd done the book. I didn't know about being kidnapped and being Margaret Ann Windsor. I'd been given the name of Peggy Ann Dempsey Childers, a twin. Both twins were dead, Carl and Peggy. But my point in this is John Hinckley Jr. Had been programmed to shoot Reagan. And it's my understanding from a pretty good source, Reagan had a bulletproof vest on. And so the shooting was, well, anyway, John Hinckley Jr. was programmed to shoot him. And they just had dinner. They were close friends, the Hinckley's, with the Bushes, and Bush was vice president. So that started and they were from Evergreen and Denver. His father, John Hinckley Sr., had a business in Evergreen, I believe, because I stopped by there and tried to see him, and there was a snowstorm, and I couldn't get there. Because I wonder if he knew about any of this, the father of John Hinckley. I couldn't get to him, but his office then, and this is in spring of 84, early spring, March, long about the last March. But his office then was in Denver. So John Hinckley is serving time in a mental hospital, like they've used in all this, that people are programmed to commit murder, acts of murder, suicide, whatever, and it's not their motive. The motive is with the person giving the programming and mind control. But anyway, Hinckley is in St. Elizabeth's hospital, or that's where he spent for a long, long time. So he's been treated for mental illness, and this whole Jodie Foster and all this, it's mind control. And this is what I'm speaking of. He's a victim of mind control, these people are. And they're done in patterns. But now, hey, how many murders and all this stuff, decision making has been altered because a person using mind control methods? How would you know it? So you will never know how much it's been used and who used it. The ones that I've spoken of over the years since I did the book, well, before then, as soon as 70, were done in patterns, so they can be proven. But the press secretary to Reagan, Brady, he was shot. And I'm not demeaning that in any way. I'm trying to get it across to people that this was mind control, and it was programming. And his wife, she was trying to get gun control. And this is when it really went into going after the guns. Guns has nothing to do with it, like the last of the mass murders. The Sandy Hook, the one yesterday in Centennial, Colorado, and then you had Columbine, so you've had a lot of stuff, Aurora, And then you had, whether you believe it or not, or want to believe it, the Ramsey, John Benet Ramsey. That was in outside Boulder, Colorado. But I wanted to put that in because Hinckley was under mind control, and that's when Brady was shot, and they started the push for gun control and background checks, which wouldn't show if you're under mind control. They'd try to say you're mentally ill, which is a sick joke. One has nothing to do with the other. That's all I can say about that at the moment. The other thing I wanted to say was when I was in Tampa, Florida, I worked at the Tampa Hilton. This is when I was put on the side of the road. So this is about December of '82. That's when the little Martinez girl was kidnapped, and he was the mayor, and later he became governor, and then he was drug czar under the Bushes. So, but I was there during that time in '82, and about maybe January in February, I'm not sure, of '83. And then suddenly I didn't have a job anymore. A woman come in and kind of, I didn't have to leave. I was kind of forced to. She came in as a temp, and of course I would say something about mind control and all this, and getting a letter from the FBI and doing the book, and then people can say, well, that's crazy, I don't believe that, you're nuts. And I've just gone to YouTube and looked at some of the people who have written about mind control, and they get the same reception as I have. People just don't want to hear it. It's invisible, so they can pretend it's not happening. But in essence, she ended up with my job. This woman did, with a temp that came in, temporary agency, and her husband, she said, was with the FBI, and she even engaged in conversation with me about mind control. And she said, well, you know that in the end, only one person can be in control of mind control, because it's almost like a zapping game. Who ends up, because somebody's going to, that has the means, would try to gain control of you. So it's zapping each other. It's war of mind control, so to speak. But anyway, I left there. I let her drive me out maybe, but it wasn't going to get me any. It wasn't going to get any better. So I left the job. I ended up across Courtney Causeway. That's from Tampa to Clearwater, and oddly enough, I was staying in a place that my husband and I had stayed, if you called it a honeymoon, back in '58, and it was still there. There's a couple of places that were the same as when we were there then, but it wasn't a honeymoon really, let me tell you. But I had enough money that I had a place to live and tried to get another job and couldn't. But I would go up to the shopping center right there at the Causeway and the motel. I would walk up to the shopping center, and this man came along, and he was pretty old. I am now, but this is in '82, about February, March. He stopped me. He was walking his dog, and he asked me to go back a couple blocks back to where I was living, really. Across the street, there was a restaurant. So he went in and bought me a cup of coffee, and he talked to me, and he told me that, well, they had a newspaper clipping, a couple of them, and they were so old, I mean, you couldn't fake that. And so he, like a lot of other things in all this, he was told to approach me and with the clippings, and he told me that John Kennedy, he could go to John Kennedy's office anytime, and he could see John Kennedy then upon his request. Well, some people might doubt him. I don't now, looking back, and I didn't at the time, because he was called the Flying Frenchman, and he won all these awards during won an Olympic medal and all this long time ago, and I kept the clippings, and then I've had so much over the years you can't carry it even if you had a U-Haul. But he also had a folio